Every now and then you'll have a tweaker come up to you and say they have psychic powers, they can move stuff with their mind. Well, they might not have all been lying to you. In comes this document that I found on the CIA website. If you know where to look, it's pretty easy to find this kind of stuff. You just gotta know what to look for. In my last video, I covered who they based Eleven from Stranger Things off of. She is mentioned in this document as well. And this document is on a study of parapsychology or psychics. So, a colonel and an agency colleague were at a meeting. All the names are redacted, so I don't have details. So as they're talking about this psychic stuff, the colonel has a phone number he has to call, and he tells his roommate, "What's the number?" And the roommate spits it out to him. He shouldn't have known it, but he saw it in his mind. And it could have just been chance. But he was a man of mathematical background and was very impressed with the odds of such a coincidence. It didn't seem like something could have been a coincidence. The simpler answer was that it wasn't. Now, as this colonel returns to the CIA, he's still thinking about that. He's tripping out. How did his roommate in the hotel do that? So he goes to Dr. William Friedman and starts talking to him about this and finds out about ESP, or extrasensory perception. Now, this colonel from the hotel room is called back into Dr. Friedman's office, and he's stoked because they just had this cool conversation about psychic people. And it turns out Dr. Friedman had a whole list of things for them to research regarding ESP. And it turns out they've been testing this. They already had experiments designed specifically for telepathic people, clairvoyant people, which is seeing things when you're not there, remote viewing. And it even says, information is periodically scanned for any kind of developments with this in the free world. If they can find people they can recruit, any info that the public might know that maybe they shouldn't know about yet. It even says they're searching for agency psychic talent, very actively but informally. Now, it says right here, one of the difficulties involved with testing ESP in a laboratory is that it can rarely be duplicated because tragic stimulus is often needed for these spontaneous cases. Now, they're not talking about remote viewing. That's repeatable. They're talking about people moving things with their mind. They call it the poltergeist phenomena. Now, I'm going to be the first one to say it. This is probably a psyop. So is the video I did on the Real Life 11, but you don't really know. And when you have hundreds of documents like this that are really boring, usually going over purchase orders and, notes you can't understand unless you speak psychologist, finding a diamond in the rough like this in the middle of a 400-page document can sometimes be convincing because that wasn't sitting there easy to be found. And if they wanted it to be a psyop, it would be easy to find. And the other option is it just didn't work and they don't really care. But remote viewing worked, and this goes over a lot of remote viewing stuff, so who knows? Before you come at me and say remote viewing didn't work, I have a video on my page. We have documents from 2011. They're still doing this stuff. They're trying to figure out countermeasures for it. It's not fake. It even says right here, there's strong evidence supporting the existence of PK, or psychokinesis, which is the moving of things with your mind, and its relationship to stressful situations, where frustration within a person causes the buildup of energy that expresses itself in a PK demonstration. Now, let's not dig too deep, but let's look at some wording. They're supporting the existence of the phenomena with stressful situations. They're wording it like it's already a phenomena. It happens. They know it for a fact, and now they're investigating why it happens when there's stress. This makes nothing a fact, but that's pretty sure wording. Now, it talks about some other cases of this, the Bremen boy in June of 1965, which I did a bit of a deep dive on. And when I say deep dive, I looked through Google for a long time. And when I tell you, no matter how you look this up, it's not there, it is not there. And if you know what that is, and I'm just missing it, please tell me. I mean, anything you search, Bremen boy case, Bremen boy psychic even, nothing. The only thing that came up is this document that also mentions that case. Lucky for me, they cover it later in the document, so I just wasted a ton of time. Now, it also has connections to weird electrical activity. Neon lights would blink and become unscrewed. They're unscrewing themselves when people do this, and light bulbs would explode, and telephone bills went, real high. So what do you do when you're a skeptic of this? You send the electrical company to come look at it with a team of electricians. They used a voltage recorder, and it went up to 50 amps, unexplained. So, what did the electricians do next? Well, to rule out the town's power source being a possibility, they brought their own generator and provided the building with power. And guess what? It still happened. The electrician company just said an unknown energy must have mechanically acted on the electrical system. That's very ominous. So, what did they do next? They brought a team of parapsychological investigators that try to deem if this kind of stuff is real or not. So this researcher they brought in, his name is Dr. Bender, and he started looking for his own little test subject. So he found a child or a young person that had unresolved traumas and had tested for ESP in school testing. This lady hated her work, was impatiently waiting for the end of each day, and was most distressed in the late afternoon. And this lady messed with the phone systems. When she would do her PK abilities, hundreds of calls would register for 0119, which is the dial tone number. And she didn't do this on purpose. It was completely an accident. She didn't even know she was doing it. She was just pissed off and the phones were going haywire. Now, here's where it gets really weird and unbelievable. One of the people joked with the telephone lady and said, hey, you know, this is crazy. Next thing you know, the pictures on the wall are going to start swirling around. And the next day, that's exactly what happened according to the document. It even says they got it on videotape, which I tried to look for that everywhere. It's nowhere. It's still top secret, still classified. And they did send her back to Dr. Bender's laboratory to test for ESP and PK once again, and she only scored above chance, which means above average for having the ability possibly, if her emotions rose to a high pitch during the course of the interview. So she had to be angry, upset, triggered, something like that, stressed. Now, this Bremen boy I was talking about, he was 15 years old. Multiple witnesses, they came out and studied him, but he worked in a china shop and dishes would just fly around when he got really pissed. He didn't know what was happening. Witnesses started to realize this only happens when he's at the shop. So Dr. Bender kidnapped him. No, I'm just kidding, but they did take him in for testing, and they were able to replicate it in a laboratory over and over and over. They had to push their buttons a lot, get him upset, but it did work. This guy could also pull hooks out of concrete walls. They secured them themselves, got him really pissed. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't even know why he was there. They get this guy pissed, and then they go check those hooks in the concrete wall, and now they're loose. They filmed it. There was never a chance when it looked like it became loose. It just did. And this document isn't here to be a tell-all about people being psychic. This is a case study for why emotionally unstable people are the most likely to do this. It even covers the fact that Soviet scientists know about it and they do tests in a Leningrad laboratory. This whole article is about the girl Nina I just did my video on. They based Stranger Things off this girl. She's the only one that has done it on film. If you want to see the film, it's my pinned video. But this is mentioned because the findings are just about the same. This girl would have a stress alarm reaction when she would demonstrate her PK. She really had to amp her emotions up. Dr. Bending's findings were supported. And now you're going to see why they call it poltergeist syndrome. The evidence suggests that PK in times of stress and tragedy may be far more common than we suspect. The clock stopping at the time of death or accident, the picture falling apparently without cause when a sun is shot over North Vietnam, and light bulbs blowing out with unusual frequency during high times of tension. And it says that, the stress can be interchangeable. It's not certain situations or certain symptoms that cause it, just some people have the ability, and when they get really angry, this power works outside of their control. They don't even have to know they can do it. And a lot of them didn't even know they could do it because it was as simple as a stopping clock when they get pissed, or you hear a dish fall and break when you're really angry, but you don't know you're the reason that happened. And it says right here, the twirling pictures that we mentioned earlier in the video could indicate how symptoms could be altered by suggestion. So you can kind of put the idea in someone's head, plant the seed, and then they might actually manifest that into a physical phenomena. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you're still here, comment the word banana.
Terrorist bombings are what happen in other countries, not here in the United States. And yet, in 1993, it happened in New York City. The World Trade Center bombing rattled our notion of domestic security. It shook the foundation of our belief that we're not vulnerable to terrorism. The cracks it caused in our self-confidence can never be repaired. If it happened once, could it happen again? It was the question in everyone's mind, but no one dared to say it aloud. I'm Jim Kellstrom, former director of the FBI's New York office. Somewhere in a crater, 5 stories deep, in wreckage a block wide, lay the key to the bomber's identity. At least, that's what investigators hoped.
We now know that the CIA told the FBI that Carter Page was a good guy, that he was a CIA informant. Then they told the FBI, they were like, no, he's not a spy. He's one of ours. So just lay off. And then the FBI lied about that on the FISA application. And this was the only guy who went down for the frame job.